What is running form and why should we care?
Well, running form is basically the way that we move. So everyone moves differently, but I believe that if you start to work on your technique, you can start getting rid of some of the injuries and the inefficiencies. So we've got a big tendency these days for people not to have any idea of what they're doing and the way that they move. So my job is to start getting people to start using their brain, and then how that reprogramming your brain will slowly translate to the rest of your body.
Reprogramming your brain. What's that mean? Dig into that.
So, uh, in our brain, we have synapses. So, everyone's synapses are wired up for the way that they move at the moment. So, you've all got very strong connections between your bonds and your synapses. But essentially, when we're trying to change our movement, we're trying to rewrite new synapses. So, one of the ways I would explain it is if you were sort of a carpenter on your first day of work and you were trying to hammer a nail into a piece of wood. You're not very good at it at the start, but with time and practice, you get better and better. So these synapses only strengthen their bonds when we sleep. So you can spend all day working on your running technique. It's not going to happen overnight, but over time, when you practice for minutes and hours, day upon day, then you'll slowly become more and more efficient.
Would you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you first become into / obsessed with this topic?
Yeah, so um, I was electrician by trade, and then I used to play rugby a lot. Was getting injured all the time, so I thought, okay, maybe this isn't the sport for me. I dislocated my ankle, I tore the cartilage in my ribs, and tore hip flexor all in the space of a year. And I was a self-employed electrician at the time, so it wasn't really working out financially that I was keep putting my body through this. So I decided to take up running sort of as a bit of a hobby, and I was suffering with typical aches and pains. So, particularly in my hip flexors, my lower back. And I started working with a local running coach. And we worked together. She gave me a tip or two on technique, and I was sort of still feeling these pains and aches all the time. So, I knew something wasn't quite right. So, with my typical sort of ADHD obsessiveness, I started going down the rabbit hole of reading book after book, trying to sort of like decode what was being taught to me. So, uh, when I was working with her, we tended to do a lot of threshold work. So, 3 or 4 times a week, and my body just wasn't adapting to that, especially working in a manual labor job at the time. I was tired and burnt out. So, I ran a 2:04 half marathon for my first time, and then worked with her for 9 months, and I only got down to 1:55. So not much progression. And seeming as on the first one I did, my legs seized up, and I still got a 2:04. I didn't make it in terms of me. I don't think I made any progression in that time. So I started reading The Lost Art of Running, which is a book by Shane Benzie. We started working together, and I reached out to him on Instagram because and I wasn't sure that he worked with amateur athletes. I thought he was just top end elite people, but I went out to see him, and then I did a session. We worked on my technique. So even though I read the book, I tried to implement what he told me, my form still wasn't great. So I went to see him, and then 4 weeks later, I went to see him again, and we did a speed session. And then just over time, my technique started getting better and better. And then I started getting faster and faster, and my time started going down and down.
Wow. Okay, fascinating. So, give me a little bit of a time span horizon. So, like when you first
Yeah,
started, when you did that 2:04 half, how long ago was this?
yeah. That was about 3 or 4 years ago.
All right, okay. And then when did you start working with Shane?
So I started working with him about 2 years ago,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed what he was teaching. So I started trying to teach a couple of my friends what he was teaching at a local park, not really having any idea what to do, but I got them moving a lot better than they were. And then I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. I want to start coaching myself. So I said, oh, is there any chance that you would sort of take me under your wing and sort of teach me everything you know. And over time, he's sort of mentored me for the last few years and, you know, really helped me on my way. So we have a few disagreements about certain things, but it's all about building up your own story as well. So I can't just piggyback off him my whole life, but, you know, what he's done has helped me tremendously, and it's helped me help other people.
Wow. So, is he from? I presume this is in the UK. You don't have to give me specific
Yeah, so he's
locations,
based in Gore. Yeah, he's based in Gore and Reading, so not a
right?
lot of techniques coaches in the country, so we're all sort of dotted about the place.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've got a friend of mine. Shout out to Liam Widrington. Is an excellent runner. Long
Yep.
distance, but we also did some Hyrox together or whatever. And he told me about that book actually. So I know it's
Yeah, yeah.
very highly regarded
Yeah.
in the sphere. What do you think about the argument that more injuries, quote, more injuries coming from
Yep.
people changing their form than having bad form? Like that's something you hear a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think that's true. But same
Mm.
with anything. When you're trying something new, you have to be really slow. So if you go in to the gym one day and you bench press 60 kilograms, and then you try to bench press 80 kilograms 2 days later, you're more likely to injure yourself. So everything I do is about, okay, we need to drop the mileage, let our body get used to these new movement patterns, and then over time, the efficiency will build. So you're not going to learn everything and then be super efficient overnight. Like I said, it takes sleep and practice, and then over time, building it up, then you become much more efficient over time.
And would you like when you're training technique? Is it
Yeah.
similar to, would you be doing like 400-meter or 1K drills or like zone 2 things? Do you do a
I
combination?
don't really. Oh, sorry. I don't really try to drill anyone. So what I'm trying to do is, like we said earlier, I'm trying to reprogram people's brain. So, you know, I could send someone out and tell them what to do for 400 meters or a kilometer. But if they don't have the understanding of why I'm telling them to do it, so in my sessions, it's all about retraining that brain and understanding how to load your body properly, rather than just telling you to do something. Because if you don't understand why you're doing it, then you're just going to go back to the old movement patterns.
What are some of those core concepts that you try and teach?
So it's all about how we can start using our fascial system and stop using the over reliance on muscles. Obviously, we have to use muscles to run, but the more we can tap into our fascial system, it sort of acts like a spring for each step. So if our bodies are in the correct position, our feet are hitting the ground correctly, then we get to get more free energy, which over time makes us more efficient runners.
And could you just delve into a little bit more about what fascial means?
Yeah, so sort of for the last 400 or 500 years, we've sort of seen the skeleton as the chassis of our body, and then our muscles and tendons are built on top. But really, I got a little prop here. So
Nice.
our bones and muscles and tendons are all sort of floating in this sea of tension, held together by fascia. So the more we can utilize that, the more our running economy will increase. So we need to get out of, you know, the idea that the skeleton is the chassis of our frame. No two bones in our body touch. Well, if they do, you've got chronic arthritis, so you're in a lot of pain. So um, we need to start seeing ourselves as movers, as a whole body moving and twisting and everything working together, rather than, you know, I'm just doing something with my legs or I'm just doing something with my arms. When one thing moves, the whole body moves with it.
So how can we improve our what would you call it, fascial function?
Yeah, the fascia. So,
The fascist.
you know, just so you know, mobility experts have got sort of half of the equation right. We tend to get very stiff, rigid over time. We've sort of become sort of like hunched over. Everything's sort of stiff and rigid. So we can start mobility work, that's one part of the equation. So yoga has done a really good job of getting people much more flexible, but we also need to train our system to be bouncy as well. So fascia has the ability to still be stretchy, but it's also responsible for our body's natural spring. So if we're doing lots of yoga and doing lots of strength work, then we're missing on that ability to integrate our whole body as a sort of springy fascial system. So if you don't want to run, you could do something like skipping. Anything that's getting that body moving up and down will increase your chances of being able to hold yourself in good positions from day to day. So one other thing is that fascial system completely regenerates itself every 7 months. So we've sort of fallen into a trap of, even when we're talking now, so most people will be sitting back in the seat and their back is unsupported. So as I'm talking to you now, I've got my laptop on the I've got the laptop at head height, so everything's on the horizon. I'm keeping my head on top of my shoulders, on top of my hips, so everything's stacked up. So if you want to start integrating some of this, you can start by at work. 5 minutes a day, I'm going to slowly come forward a couple of inches. Your back is going to get very tired at first because you're asking it to do something new. But the more and more you do it, the more efficient you'll become, and the more that will translate to your running economy. So try and keep everything up, eyes on the horizon, and then that will also lead to improved running economy. So you could effectively spend, if you're an office worker, you could be spending 7 or 8 hours a day training for your running while you're at work.
Okay, interesting. I remember I used to have pretty terrible posture, and I got you might have seen these. It was about 4 years ago. Like I seen them, and they were like all in my Instagram ads, and it was like a thing that you like stuck to the nape of your neck, and it was like connected to your phone, and then when you like moved like out of that alignment, it would like set off an alarm or
I've not seen that before, but maybe it's worth having a look at.
To be honest, I wouldn't recommend it. It was just weird. Like, do you know what I mean? It was, I'd like one of those like Scotch like stickers, and you'd like, it's just weird having that stuck to your back. To be honest, the thing that improved my posture was lots of strength training and like standing desks and stuff like that. I think
that's good.
This desk is an uppy downy one, so which is like a high level move. I would definitely recommend. My one at work in the office, because I didn't want to be like a pain in the ass, like saying, "Oh, like buy me a new desk." I was just like, I just built my own standing desk out of like bits of random shit in the office. So there's no option to sit down at work. So it's like when I'm in the office, I'm stood up all day. But it's amazing actually when you don't have the opportunity. It's kind of like you just get used to it. Whereas like, you know, I go on about the uppy down desk, but I'm much more likely to sit down because I've got the option. But I think I don't know. But even now, like when we were talking that, I always try to like keep myself straight, engage the core, but doing that for like 7 hours, like you've got to have a pretty solid core. I don't know if anyone could do that without hunching a little bit.
So, you know, typically hunter-gatherers and stuff, you know, they don't spend all day with the perfect posture, but they're not spending their time sitting at sofas, sort of everything collapsing back. So everything we can do in that period can help start strengthening our posture. So you can build up to it. There's no reason why you can't, but it is normal. And our body does need to flex. So it's sometimes good to get in posture, but we need our default position not to be a poor posture, because our body doesn't want to create any waste any energy creating the perfect posture if we're not going to use it. So things like our mid traps will start to slowly switch off over time. So you see people's shoulders getting more forward and more forward over the years, which also affects their running economy. So the more time that we can spend upright with a straight back, the more time we're spending training.
Do you do any meditation?
Yes, I do. Well, I do a thing called HRV breathing more than meditation.
Okay.
So I know we were going to talk about this, but so we've got two brains in our body. So we've got the brain, sort of the thinking brain, which everyone's very aware of, and then we've got the parasympathetic nervous system. So, when we're working out, when we're in high stress environments day to day, then we're ramping up that sympathetic nervous system, and then we've got the parasympathetic nervous system. So our parasympathetic nervous system evolved way before we had brains. So if you struggle to understand how a spider moves around the room without having a brain, then this is why, because it reacts subconsciously to everything you do. So if we're in high stress environments all the time, we'll slowly become more ramped up in the sympathetic nervous system. So this is where you start feeling anxious, and this can also translate to your posture. So if you've had a traumatic childhood or traumatic life event, then you can see the tendency of people's posture getting in that fight or flight defensive mechanism. So even just pulling your shoulders back from day to day when you walk down the street, having that chest open shows that you're in control of your own body and that you're activating that parasympathetic nervous system. So so in terms of, everyone's got a smartwatch these days, or most people do, and it tells you your HRV. That tells you your balance between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system. So HRV breathing is more like 5 seconds of a slow inhale and then 5 seconds out, and this can really start controlling your system. So any of my athletes, I say, as soon as you finish your workout, do some HRV breathing. Before you go to bed, do some HRV breathing. And then this can start to regulate your body over time and allow you to be much more confident, and it will enhance your recovery probably better than anything bar sleep.
Yeah. So is that like basically you're extending the exhale, so you're slowing your breathing down, and then the exhale is slightly longer,
so
or
it's
is it
5
like
seconds.
equal?
It's five and a half. Well, it's between 5 and 6 seconds in and 5 and 6 seconds out. So I usually do five and a half just to meet right in the middle. So it's equal breaths, and then that starts to synchronize those heartbeats, that HRV. So getting it in alignment with the rest of your body.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was there. The reason I asked you about meditation is because we were talking about posture. And like it's something. It's probably one of the one things that distracts me from my meditation is how's my posture. I'm sat there in the morning, like cross-legged, and it's like it's an interesting kind of, maybe there's some crossover to like running posture and stuff, where it's like how much effort is the right amount of effort to actually engage your core and hold you upright versus totally like be over-indexing on trying to be straight. Do you know what I mean? And then it actually causing fatigue. So, all right, let's delve into that. Not meditation, but let's talk about while we're out there running, some pointers, like what are the general things that people are doing wrong and how can we improve them?
Yeah, so I tend to see that the Western world has really sort of allowed our body not to function properly. So if we start with the feet, because this is the start of our sort of strength and elastic change. So that fascial system runs right from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. So people now have got chronically weak feet, which means that in terms of efficiency, the bottom of our chain, everything upwards of it is going to have to start working harder. So I've got a model of a foot now. So
cool.
What we've noticed over the years.
Would you describe it a little bit, by the way, because we'll have some audio listeners, if that's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm showing now is our foot. So over the sort of last 50 or 60 years is we've created narrower and narrower toe boxes. So that's squeezing the top of our toes in, and then as you can see, so under our foot, we have what's called the plantar fascia. So this is responsible for our foot's natural elasticity. So when we start squeezing our toe box narrower and narrower, we weaken the plantar fascia under our feet. So this is why a lot of people...
Why does that weaken it by squeezing those together?
Why does that weaken? Because we're stretching it out. So if your toes should be the widest part of your foot. As you can see here, as I start squeezing those toes in, that's going to start stretching out the plantar fascia. So you can imagine this, if you were to grab your hand and start squeezing that in, do that for months and years, that hand's not going to function very well. So what running shoe companies have done to sort of counteract this is we'll squeeze the toe boxes and then, oh God, we'll squeeze the toe box in, but now we'll add arch support under. So, addressing the sort of symptoms of weaker foot. So your plantar fascia is not going to be able to take the load because it's so stretched out. So we're going to put arch support under it. And then when you do that and combine that, you're sort of wrapping your foot in a sort of cast, which is just not allowing it to flex properly and not allowing it to function properly. So this is all started from when we were children, unfortunately. The first thing we do is start putting our kids in shoes that are way too narrow, way too tight. And then over years and years and years, our feet are not strong like they should be. So I typically recommend people start getting shoes like this. So something with a wider toe box. This is a Vivo Barefoot. I'm not saying that you have to go out and run in it, and I don't really advise going out and running it. But if you can wear this from day to day, your foot is going to strengthen over time. So you can see sort of how much that shoe flexes and moves, and there's no arch support in it. And now you're allowing your foot to function as it should. So we didn't evolve to have these super cushioned shoes, super narrow toe boxes, but our body is very good at adapting. So it will adapt to whatever we put it in, but it doesn't mean it's optimal.
Yeah. I've been Vivo pilled as well. So I've been wearing them for a little bit. And I remember my coach basically said the same thing as you said: walk in them, don't run in them necessarily. One of the things I noticed when I started wearing them was that I almost got like, it felt like it was almost like DOMS in the, what's that bit along the bottom, the bottom of your foot, whatever that's called. Is that the plantar fascia? Is it?
Sort of the arch of the foot, or
yeah,
the sort of
and it was almost
fascia.
like it felt like it had been stretched.
Yeah.
I could have always likened it to like the first time you like walk on a beach as a kid or whatever, and your feet aren't used to it. Is that a good thing to be getting from the shoe?
Yeah, but the same as with running technique, don't expect instant results, build up over time. So I think if you wear Vivo Barefoots for about 6 months, you get a 60% increase in foot strength. But same with anything, don't go into just trying to wear them full time every day. I found that I could adapt quite quickly because I was on my feet quite a lot with my old electrical job. So they were relatively strong, but same with anything. If you go from not using them to trying to use them all the time, then expect some soreness, and then just sort of ebb and flow between normal shoes and then uncushioned, unsupported shoes. And then over time, you'll get to transition to it. So you can run in it, but I don't recommend to for new beginners. I can run quite long distances in them because I've taken the time to strengthen my feet over years, but it hasn't been an overnight thing. So in terms of shoes, we want to use shoes because they can give us extra spring in each step. So, there's a reason why there's foam under our shoe to help propel us forward. But unless we know how to utilize it to its full potential, then we're just losing energy.
I suppose, because one of my next questions was like, is there anyone that shouldn't be, wearing the barefoots? And I suppose it's probably a similar analogy to someone who is a newbie in the gym and maybe they're overweight or whatever, and then they're not going to go straight in and start training 6 days a week.
Yeah. So, I'm not a podiatrist, so I can't advise everyone on exactly how their foot works. But, for the most part of the population, I think they'll benefit from it. If you've got super collapsed arches, then I think some people should be wearing arch support if they've got to a state like that. I'm not really a foot expert. I'm more of a running technique expert, but I think most people will benefit from strengthening their feet over time. If you can't wear them straight away, you could start trying to integrate some small foot exercises to start strengthening up, and then maybe you'll start to restore that arch over time. But like I said, I'm not a podiatrist, so I haven't spent years studying that. I've spent years studying running.
It's fascinating though, like as you like look into, I think it's a really cool and important thing to become more aware of your body and how you move through space and all the rest of it. And the barefoot shoes are a beautiful example of that. I feel like I really started noticing like toes, like what toes were there for. And then versus like I'd be running in a pair of carbons, and I would even notice like my toes were like numb at the end of the run, and I'm like, they're literally not being used there, are they? Because they're so structured.
Yeah, so I'm sort of an advocate of, if you want to wear carbon shoes, save them for race day. Obviously, you wear them a few times so they get worn in a bit. But if you're doing all of your training in carbon plated shoes with these rockers, so they start pointing your toes up. And then they've got a carbon plate under. So it's better to get your feet fully strong, ready for race day. And then we've got two extra benefits of wearing carbon shoes. We've got strong feet, and we're using the carbon plated shoes to help propel ourselves forward. But if we're relying on things that over support our feet over time, then the strength of our foot is going to weaken. So one thing not a lot of people know as well is the likes of Kipchoge and all of those elite runners, they've got carbon plated shoes, but they're not built like the same as everyone who buys theirs off the shelf. So they've got a lower heel to toe drop, they've got a wider toe box, they've got specifically carbon designed shoes for that person, whereas Nike will sell 8mm heel to toe drop in most of their carbon range, whereas Kipchoge has won most of his races in a 4mm drop. So a lot more natural, a lot lower, and allows his foot to function much better.
While we're on shoes, we're hopefully going to get into do a little bit of a live assessment demo at some point. So we'll maybe maybe touch on this. But probably a lot of people will be familiar if they've had issues with their knee. They've gone to a physio. They've said they're overpronate or they're underpronate. Go get yourself a structured shoe. Spend £200 on a shoe. Go on a treadmill at a running shop and all the rest of it. I went down that road, like 10, 15 years ago. And if I'm honest, like it didn't really help all that much. For me, what helped was basically just strength training, and then the shoe didn't really matter as much.
Okay.
What do you think about that whole kind of sphere and structured shoes and stuff like that?
So we've been sort of taught the last God knows how many years that pronation is a bad thing and that our foot needs to be perfectly stable. But if you look at all the elite runners, every time they hit the ground, their foot pronates in, and that stores elastic recoil. So as you land, you should land midfoot, and then your foot should collapse in. Sorry, you should land midfoot, and then your arch collapses in, stores that elastic energy, and propels you forward. So overpronation is, of course, a bad thing. So we don't want our foot to be collapsing too much, but it's natural for our feet to pronate. So if you go to a running store and they say, well, your feet are pronating, you need an extra wide stability shoe, I don't really believe in that. You can go down the rabbit hole with that as well. So running shoes are sort of trying to address the symptoms of the problem. So trying to make it comfier to help with the way that we interact, the way that we're hitting the ground, how our foot is rocking and rolling. If you're landing on your heel, your foot is going to twist and turn. And if you land on your forefoot, that's going to overuse your calves and Achilles muscles. So when we land with a midfoot strike, that's a fully stable landing. So we've got equal pressure between the forefoot and the heel, and then that stabilizes the foot. It should pronate slightly, to store that elastic energy and then propel us forward.
Okay, cool. So we've done the feet, we've completed that. Let's move up the body.
Yeah.
What's the next point of interest or optimization, if you will?
Well, like I said, so about 84% of people tend to overstride and land with a heel strike. If you were to wear a pair of Vivo Barefoots and try, or even run barefoot on the concrete, you would start to correct your side within a few steps, because your feet don't like smashing the ground with heels. But we've added an inch of foam under our feet, and we don't have a lot of nerve endings around our heels. So we've really lost that perception of how we're landing. So we've got an average of 250,000 nerve endings in our feet. But what's happened is that we've sort of switched off the connection between our brain and our feet, because we've been padding them and wrapping them in a cast for so many years. So people can't even feel when they're landing with a heel strike and an overstride. So I tell people that these energy forces don't just disappear, they go somewhere else. So it can be in your ankle, it can be in your shins, it can be your knees, your hips, your back. Something is going to start trying to stabilize that foot, even the hamstrings. So something along that chain always wants to try and keep that foot stable and stop you from overstriding. So this is where, even strength work can start to mask the problem, because if you're strengthening those muscles, they can handle it better, but we're still putting excess forces through our joints. So over time, it's going to lead to inefficiency. And if you do it for 30 or 40 years, you're really going to feel it by the end of that.
Okay. So what we're saying here in terms of what we're looking to optimize in terms of, like, as we move up through that. So let's take it to the knee. Like, what are we thinking there?
Yeah. It could be various things. If you've got weaknesses in your strength and conditioning, then your knee can over compensate for that. But our knee is a hinge, so that likes to be moving in a forward and backwards motion, so it doesn't like to be twisted and turned. So if people's feet are twisting and turning, or something else is twisting and turning, that's what's causing the knee pain, is because something's trying to stabilize that knee from twisting too much. So that's where we tend to see, people's knees are starting to hurt.
Yeah, like I never, I must admit, a mate of mine used to always like going on to me about running stride and overstriding. I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah.
I'm getting faster. It's fine. I've got me padded shoes, and I'm doing my strength training.
Yeah.
So but I must admit, I did a 10K November of last year, and I basically, I was going to get a sub 40. That was the target, even though it was only like it was only a training, like it was just all ego. But I was like, I know I can do sub 40. I will do it. I felt terrible that week. I felt like I was getting ill at one point, and I should have listened to my body and gone, okay, just slow down. Like, you don't need to go and set a PB. But I was so adamant that I wanted to do it. I had all my targets set up on my watch, my paces. I was like, I am keeping them paces. And I think what I realized, that I didn't realize at the time, was the real cost of running, pushing yourself as a runner for that kind of distance, and what happens to your form. Because I would see like pictures afterwards, and I'm literally like, my heels like really, and I think it's like, I guess everyone's different, but for me, when I get tired, I start to like try and lengthen my stride, take advantage of having slightly longer legs. And that actually set me back. Probably, like, I basically had like 5-6 weeks of like not being able to run during like an intense period of my Hyrox training because of that. So it was the first time that I really become aware of just that feeling of overstride. And I think as well, like, sometimes, I don't know if you ever heard this, when I heard this when I was a kid, which was like, use your legs. You, like, because I had longer legs than most kids, like, stride out. and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you: how can we make the most of? Let's say you do have longer legs. How can we make the most out of that without overstriding?
So this is where the issue comes in, is that people try to reach out everything in front of them in order to increase their stride length. So as runners, we want everything to be going backwards in order to propel ourselves forward. So our legs, when they're coming in front of us, they need to start working backwards, and then we push the ground backwards and our arms are swinging backwards. And that is where the stride length needs to come from the point of where you push off to the point of where you land, not by trying to reach your foot out in front of you to increase your stride length. Because when you do that, you're just using your body as a sort of shock absorber. So this is where the injuries and pains and stuff come in, is because people are trying to reach out in front of them to increase their stride length. But our stride length should be from the point of the push off to where it lands. So, and that landing phase needs to be working backwards to stop the overstride. So, you can create really long stride lengths if you want to reach a heel out in front of you, but then we're losing the ability to tap into that fascial system because our body's now acting as a shock absorber rather than a spring.
Right, I see. What's the bow?
So the bow comes from the ability to have your sort of head stacked on your shoulders on top of your hips. So we spoke about earlier, people who start rolling their shoulders forward, that starts to tap you into an anterior chain dominant movement pattern. So the front side of our body is predominantly built for power. So if you think squats or bench press, or if we were to have a fight with each other, everything's sort of coming from the front. So we're we're more powerful doing things in front of us than behind us. Obviously, I know the weight goes on the back on your shoulder on squats, but we're using the quads a lot more. So as endurance runners, we want to be tapping into our posterior chain. So if you think running, rowing, cross-country skiing, everything's sort of going backwards. So the ability to pull our shoulders back slightly, get your head on top of your shoulders, on top of your hips. So when you push off effectively, you should be able to see this really nice bow shape of it starting to sort of look like a semi-curve, but everything's upright. And then most runners tend to lean from the waist to try and move themselves forward. So it sort of creates like an S-shaped pattern, whereas we want to create a bow. So we stack everything on top of us, pull our shoulders back slightly, and the lean forward needs to come from the ankles. So the easiest way to do this is to feel like you've opened your chest up. You can either think that you're pulling a bowstring from the center of your belly button to under your chin. So we're really getting everything up right now. And then, or you can imagine that a balloon is on top of your head. This is what traditionally is used. A balloon is on top of your head, holding your posture up. So that gets everything in alignment, that neutralizes the pelvis, and it engages your core, but you don't want to tense your core as you're running. So then we feel like we're pulling a bowstring, or bowstring is pulling our chest forward, and then we get to tap into gravity because we start to fall into the run, and we're getting even more free energy returns from our running.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Those of you who are watching probably notice me like moving about on my chair. So we've got like,
Yeah.
From our chin, did you say that we've got
so from our belly button to our chin,
and then it's like it's been pulled out.
Yeah. So I can show you now quickly. So if we can imagine ourselves as sort of an elastic band is running down our body, when we bend from the waist and pull it back, that's how much muscular energy we have to use. Whereas if we pull ourselves upright, we get to tap into more elastic spring.
I'm so excited to tell you about my first ever sponsor. Bear Bar make the highest quality shower soaps. Those of you close to me will know I'm always recommending and gifting them to people. I've actually brought some upstairs from my bathroom to show you. This one is Nebula Nightshade Fresh Cut Pine. This is one of the first ones that they made. It's got like this OT kind of texture thing. I once described it to Christian, the founder, as like a cheese grater for my feet in a good way. Favorites are Woodsman, Molten Lather, it's actually a shampoo bar, and Citrus Burst, which I've used all of that, so I don't have it. Do you remember those like packs you used to get with Pokemon cards? They're kind of like that. They stack it in your bathroom really nicely. You'll definitely dig it. Once you try these, you will never want to go back to £1.99 squeezy plastic horrible fairy liquid style soaps. Trust me, it's an absolute game changer. I don't even bother with moisturizer because I've got this fantastic quality soap and a good diet, of course. There's no plastic. It's made in the UK. Honestly, it's just a 5-star product all around. If you'd like to try Bear Bar, you can get 15% off your first order by going to bit.ly/bearjace. That's BAREJASE to get 15% off. I think now would be a good time for us to delve into some of those videos. Do you want to have a look? So we've got, I've sent Myles in advance a few of me running around Hyrox tracks with my top off in terrible quality. So hopefully it's not too bad. And then a couple of my my friends have also sent some videos in, Lucy and Jade. So we're going to delve into this and see if we can pick up some patterns and demonstrate a little bit to people.
Okay, yeah. So we spoke about this proportion of people that were overstriding and heel striking. I can see straight away everyone in this photo, their legs are reaching out in front of them and they're landing on their heels. Okay,
including me.
So as you're hitting the ground. Yeah, including you. So look how straight that leg is, and look how upright that heel is. So, this might be why you battered your body for a few weeks after, because if you're pushing that high intensity, it's really going to start to hurt. Okay, so yeah, as you're coming, 2 seconds. Not very good with computers, unfortunately.
You're okay, mate.
So as you're coming through, looks relatively good here. Nice.
I think it's maybe the peace sign was like leaning me forward a bit more.
Yeah. So this is a really good example. People's head position. So our head weighs on average 5 kilograms, and for each inch that is pointing down, we add another 5 kilograms to our spine and shoulder muscles. So, if you spend too long looking at a screen or at your phone, your shoulders and spine have to take that up. So if he's running around like that, he's probably got the equivalent of 20 kilograms being taken up by his spine and his shoulders, which is really going to affect his running efficiency. So,
this is, for anyone listening, by the way, this is a Hyrox Glasgow, a few shots. And the belly you're talking about isn't me, by the way, with the bad head posture.
No, but I think it's really important to see, as that posture is collapsing, he's going to get tired out a hell of a lot quicker than if he had his head upright, his eyes on the horizon.
Do you think, sorry to interrupt, do you think how much energy is wasted in something like that during something like a Hyrox where you're running like probably about 9K?
Yeah. A lot. I don't have specific measurements, but if you're carrying that small weight of a child around on your shoulder, it's just going to tire you out faster and faster. And then what happens is that people start to mold into that shape. So as they get more tired, it collapses more and more. So
you say it was 20
if you
kilos.
Can't maintain good posture. It can be the equivalent of 20 kilograms being taken up by your spine. So your head is 5 kilograms. But if you're looking down at the floor 4 inches, then it's the equivalent of 20 kilograms. So if it's looking down an inch, it's 10 kilograms. If it's looking down 3 inches, it's 15 kilograms.
Yeah. So it's like having a weighted vest.
So essentially. So and then we're tapping into that power system. So our quads, our core. And then this isn't really built for endurance, so then you fatigue faster and faster. So if you can't maintain the perfect posture, it's better to walk, let your body reset, and then go back to running perfectly, and then your efficiency will be much better over the race. Okay. So
here he comes again.
As you're coming through here, so we got quite a nice side-to-side motion, which is really good. It's quite rare to see that.
What side-to-side? So just like arms across body type thing?
Yeah, so you want your head to be over your foot, and actually this is a good example, is that you're not doing it quite enough here. So your head should be in line with your foot with each step. So if you've got good thoracic mobility and good hip mobility, is that your head sort of goes from side to side, and then you load your fascial system one side at a time. But as you can see, it's not quite over far enough here, so you've just got a slight hip drop here. So hip drop is caused by this quite still head movement and your body trying to stabilize it. So when you're doing that, it's wasting energy with each step as well.
So I need to be pulled upwards a bit there, don't I?
Yeah, pulled upwards, I would say. You're leaning forward from the waist. Potentially look at your hip mobility as well, because if your hips and your upper thoracic aren't moving in synchronicity, then it's really hard to get this movement pattern. Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, just coming through with the overstride still. Yeah. Yeah, so even here, as you're coming through here, we need to get your arms coming much further back. So it looks like they're just sort of joining along for the ride at the moment.
Further back.
So we want to use all. Yep. So yeah, you need to be driving those elbows back, and then when you do that, so you don't want to drive it back with muscle. You just want to feel like you're pushing it back, nice and relaxed, and then that will store elastic energy in the shoulders, and then everything should come forward naturally. So one of the other runners later in the video doesn't do it very well, so you can see that her vertical oscillation starts to go up.
Excited.
Yeah, so we need to get those arms nice and relaxed from the shoulder. And if your shoulders are pulled forward, and as you can see here, you're getting tired.
That actually, that's the start line. So that's the start line.
Oh,
that's the first start of the race. But I think there, I'm probably trying to. I'm trying to stay relaxed so that I don't go full send on the first 1K. So that's probably why it looks like I'm tired.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Well, you may be a little bit too relaxed there, because even that hand dropping down, flopping around is wasting energy. So we want the arms and the hands to be in alignment and driving back. And if this is you at the start, you can see your head is quite in front of your shoulders, and then your shoulders are very in front of your hips. So this is the typical leaning from the waist. So if you do that at the start of the run, I guarantee you're going to be very tired by the end of it.
So just like, because this is a really good. So right, so the head, where should the head be at this point?
Yep. So the head should be like this. So that's good positioning. But because you're bending from the waist, everything's leaning forward. So your eyes should be on the horizon. They look like they're looking down at the moment. So we want to be looking as far out in front of us as possible. So in the back of our neck, we have what's called the nuchal ligament, and that's designed to keep our head upright and on the horizon. So we evolved to look out for predators and prey on the horizon. So our default position likes to be eyes out on the horizon. So when you bend from the waist, you can't bring your legs up as far. So that means that you're more likely to land with that overstride and heel strike. So you need to start trying to feel like you've got a balloon on top of your head, or pulling that bowstring from your belly button to your chin. And then that will allow you time to start cycling your legs back underneath you and start correcting that overstride.
So would that mean like where you can see my elbow, and then underneath there's like a little like well, I guess it is a bit like a bit of an arch, just a bit of a curve. That would be like a little bit more straight because my hips,
so one thing to be careful with is just try and pull the shoulders back slightly. Don't arch your back, because when they think of trying to create this bow shape, they start to try and arch their back. But we just want to keep everything in line with each other. So our head should be slightly in front of our shoulders and then slightly in front of our hips, but it's very subtle. It's about 2 to 4 degrees. So you've got to have a very good eye to notice that. So you should look pretty much upright. But as you can see, that is probably forward lean of about 12 degrees.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Okay?
Yeah. I wonder if, by the way, I think the next one is a few months later. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, see, the guy I'm running with, Cal Baines, shout out to Cal, is a very good runner. And I wonder, like, how much you start. I notice I mirror people a little bit, and I feel like I change my. I wonder if you does it look like I change on this compared to what you've already seen?
Yeah, it looks like your arms. Yeah, your arms are definitely doing a lot more than they were in the other video. But yeah, he's overstriding with a heel strike, and you're overstriding with a heel strike. So yeah. And this is the thing, is that you can get incredibly efficient at doing things that are suboptimal. So, I work with some very high-end Hyrox athletes, but they all land like this. So
would
this
you
is
be willing
costing them
to
minutes,
share any of the Hyrox athletes you're working with?
Not at the moment, because I'm going out with to Germany to start working with them. So depending on how that goes, I'll share it in the future.
Right.
But it's just in the
that's cool.
beginning phases at the
moment. Keep me updated offline.
We'll do. So in Kenya, they all start to run together. So when they turn up on their first day of the training camp, they're not moving beautifully. But what happens is they get stuck in the middle of a pack. So the best runners run at the front and at the back. And then, unfortunately, they've got to get good very fast. So if they don't start breaking 2 hours 15 within a few months, they're gone.
Wow, right.
But what that does is that starts to teach them to start synchronizing their footsteps, start synchronizing their landing, start synchronizing their arm swings, start synchronizing their posture. So when they go out together, they all look like they're running in perfect unison. So you will adapt to the runner or running group that you run with. So most of the people around the world are running out by themselves. So it's a really good idea to start running with a better runner every now and then. Just check their forms, okay?
Hey, do you ever...
otherwise, you'll start copying them.
Have you ever thought about, or have you ever ran like your own training, like running camps?
I'm starting to do 4 to 12 week programs of, online, though. Most of my work is coming online.
Yeah,
so
I was just thinking almost like a running retreat, like, because people go out to Kenya.
Yeah.
To get that benefit of running with.
So me and Shane. So me and Shane Benzie is starting to do some group workshops of 20 people can turn up for a day, and then we go through 8 hours of basically retraining the body, retraining the movement patterns together. So it's not quite a base camp, because the trouble is, when you go from landing in this position to landing with a mid-foot strike and cycling your legs, so that needs to be a lot straighter, is that your muscle, so your soleus muscle, hasn't been used properly before. So that's going to be incredibly sore. So we can't get people to do it for 3 days straight, because it takes time to build up that strength in the muscle and tendon and fascial system. Okay. Cool. So as you can see, you're really trying to reach that stride out in front of you to increase your speed.
He's much faster than me, so I'm probably trying to overcompensate. Okay, here's Lucy. Shout out Lucy Jackson-Jones.
She's pretty good runner. She looks like to here she's landing relatively on her midfoot. She's able to tap into that fascia under her foot. Really nice running. I probably would like to see her just cycling her legs back a little bit, just to.
And the cycling legs back. This is about the. Is this about the hips again, like the bending from the?
No. So if we go back to where you were, 2 seconds. So. As you've stretched your legs out, that needs to be working backwards. So the easiest way I can get people to start understanding this is if you were to stand on a treadmill that wasn't moving and you had to get that thing turning under you. So you would start cycling your legs back. So you should be cycling your legs back and then pushing back and then that would get the treadmill moving. Okay, so you wouldn't be trying to get that treadmill moving by trying to reach those legs out in front of you, would you?
No,
that would make it spin the other way.
Yeah.
So that's an easy illustration of how much energy is being wasted, is that you're basically slamming on the brakes and basically forcing everything the wrong way with every single
almost
step.
like a push instead of a pull.
Yeah, so this is really important, that we don't want to be pulling ever. So our hip flexors are incredibly weak muscles. They're not designed to be lifted for thousands of reps. Everything wants to be pushed from the glutes. So as you push back, you're activating your glutes. When you push from just under the forefoot, so sort of between the center between your heel and your forefoot, that will activate your glutes more. So if you push off from your toes, you'll be using your quads and your calves.
Yeah.
And if you push off from your heels, you'll be using your hamstrings. So if we can push off right in the center of that foot, that will open up the glutes. So they're the powerhouse of our running. So you don't want to be using muscles. So we never want to lift our knees either, because now we're just using hamstring muscles. We don't want to be lifting our heels, then we're using hamstring muscles. If we start lifting our knee, we're using hip flexor muscles. So the only muscles we want to be using down here really to propel our run is the glutes, because they're designed for that power. Okay, so obviously we use all of our muscles in running, but we want the most of our force to be coming through the glutes. So one thing I notice here is that she's driving her arms quite high up, and I think it's particularly with the left one. You can see here she's going way higher up with her left, because she's really trying to drive that arm up in front of her. So her vertical oscillation is very high. So
vertical oscillation, what's that mean?
When she's driving. So vertical oscillation is sort of how high you go in between each step. So how much up and down movement you've got in proportion to going forward. So we want to keep our vertical oscillation not as low as possible, because when we keep it as low as possible, then we try to overstride with a heel strike too. But there's a fine point. About 6 and 8% is what's typically seen with elite athletes. But as you can see, she's going quite high as she's coming up. It's better there, but
so that's like the elbow coming up too high. Did you mean it like?
Yeah. So as you can see, that one is definitely going up quite high. Okay,
behind her.
That would be something. Yeah. So she feels like she's driving her arms back and then storing the elastic energy. Then it should come through naturally, where it looks like she's just kind of driving that a little bit too far in front and up. Okay.
Here's Jade.
So here's another
Shout
one.
out Jade Booth.
Yeah. So, like I said, 84% of people landing on their heels with a relatively straight leg. And as you can see, as she's doing that, her posture is just starting to collapse with it, because it's trying to stabilize that landing. But yeah, she's got nice arm movement, and her head's nice and on the horizon. And she's got that nice bow shape that we're talking about as she pushes off.
So
see, this is what a bow shape should look like.
Nice. We've got another one of Jade on a treadmill at the end as well, so we'll go. I think the next one is Lucy from behind.
Okay. Yeah, so I had a quick look at this one. So as she's, can't really see it there, but that's the optimal landing. We want to be landing sort of mid-foot, our whole foot, and then have a slight pronation in. So
points to
there
Lucy.
You go. That's a good example. Our foot should naturally pronate. Looks like her arms are coming really far out to the side here. So I would probably hazard a guess that her hip mobility is very poor, which is causing her shoulders to sort of over rotate at the top. So I like to see people from a 360 view. So I usually get 3 angles. So that would give me more of an insight. But as you can see, everything's sort of twisting and that hip is dropping. So I would imagine that head is not in line with that foot. And her lack of hip mobility is what's causing this excessive arm swinging out because her you can see here as she's coming back, look at that right, this right arm here. So look how far that's twisting behind her body now. So we want everything to be going in a straight line.
So just on that point, I just don't want to skip over it. So why is it a lack of hip mobility that would overcompensate with like an arm swing? Like what's going on there?
Yeah, so everyone seems to typically think that their running starts with their legs, but really our sort of upper body and lower body move together around T12, which is sort of in the center of the spine. So as you open up your stride, your shoulders should go back with it. But if you've got lack of hip mobility, then your upper thoracic spine is going to start trying to work harder to try and stabilize those inefficient hips. So the more open we can get our hips, so this is one of the problems of sitting down in Western culture day to day, is that we've become gradually weaker and weaker in our hips over time. So, and a lack of range of motion. So if you can open those up, that means that you can push off, so you can get that stride length. This would be a really good way to open your stride length, is by getting those hips open, and you can extend them further back, and then your push off will be much more effective. So if you've got a lack of hip mobility, this is what can also cause the up and down effects of running, is because you have to push off earlier than your hips will allow you to. So you can't push far back to propel yourself as far forward. So you get kind of stuck, and then your push off sends you up and down.
What, just a quick note on, so we've looked at, for example, with mine and Lucy's, all of our running, we've not looked at, all of our heads have been like fairly upright, right? So we're not carrying that extra 10, 20 kilos necessarily.
I would say so, but I did notice when you were getting tired in some of your videos, there's definitely a clip where it's starting to drop forward. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Probably that was at the end of it. So,
I mean,
try and keep it upright all the time.
Yeah, that is one of my cues actually, where I go, I do try and, what is it? You might have heard this one before, where it's like, what would this be like if it was easy? And then I kind of like, or just smiling. Like I used to be like proper grim when I did a Hyrox. I'd be like, but then just like smiling, put my head up. But taking that aside for 1 second, so like when we're talking about all this stuff with, push off and overstriding, etc. Other than, obviously the biggest risk here is injury. But what about inefficiency and actual like effect on times for this particular thing? Is there like, are there like big gains to be had for correcting this stuff, or is it more like in the
massive gains? So this all ties into even your parasympathetic system. If you can't move your hips properly, you can't breathe properly when you're running. So your shoulders are over rotating. So that means that your lungs are being contorted and twisted in certain ways that they shouldn't be. So everything needs to be working together. If they're not, then we start to overcompensate. And this is where, when you've got your hips nice and open and mobile, they should be able to stretch themselves out on runs. But if they're starting from a point of tightness, then it's easier for them to overcompensate and create more inefficient movement patterns.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's continue.
Okay. So on to the next one. Ooh. Yeah, so head in a perfect position. She's got a very nice bow here. So really impressive. As you can see, it's frozen for a second, but like we spoke about earlier, we're still got that straight leg and landing with a heel strike. So she's got really nice fluid movement. To be fair, her shoulders and her hips seem to be working together. Her hips seem to be going right far back, and that's pretty much second to none in terms of posture.
Wow.
So she should be really happy.
She's actually a coach, so she'll be happy. She'll be delighted.
Oh,
you should see her RDLs.
Yeah, probably a lot better than mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for her, I would try to imagine trying to, get that treadmill moving under you and just play around with trying to point your toes down. So try sort of putting myself out of a job here, but it's really important to start videoing yourself because you can't correct what you're doing unless you see yourself. Well, you can correct it to some extent, but you can't argue against video evidence. So if you can start filming yourself more regularly and start feeling your body. So when you land midfoot, everything should start feeling a lot more springy, bouncy, and helping propelling yourself forward. When you're starting to cycle your legs underneath you, it should pretty much instantly feel more efficient. Obviously, it's going to be harder at first because you're using your brain to integrate new movement patterns. So you're overworking your brain, but the more time you do it, the more efficient it becomes and more natural it becomes over time.
When so obviously if we start to, so if Jade now starts to point her toes down a little bit more and cycle those legs underneath her, what are some potential like key indicators that she's doing it right? Like, will there be like extra soreness around like the calves or anything that would be?
So yeah, I think I touched on this briefly earlier. So whenever you're working on technique, it's a really good idea to drop your mileage significantly. So if you're running, if you're building up to a marathon, then it's not a good idea to start trying to integrate all of this. So I typically send runners out for 20 or 30-minute sessions, allow them to focus on a sequence of things, so about 5 or 6 things, go through them one by one. So 5 minutes thinking about cycling, 5 minutes thinking the midfoot landing, 5 minutes thinking about the push off, 5 minutes about the posture, and 5 minutes about the arm swing. So under here, just under her calf, is what we call the soleus muscle. So if we've been overstriding and landing with that heel strike, that muscle effectively hasn't ever done its job properly when we're running. So it's very common for people who start trying to land midfoot strike and start loading that feet and the soleus muscle correctly to feel a little bit of soreness. So I just say don't stretch, just massage it. So we don't want to stretch muscles that are sore because then we're just adding more micro tears to them. So that also inhibits the recovery period. So if anything, it's better to start off with too little running and then build up slowly than trying to go out for a 10K where you're trying to correct your foot placement and your posture and everything. So if it's better to go out and run for 10 minutes beautifully than it is to go 10 minutes, I'm going to land really well, I'm going to cycle, I'm going to have my posture, my bow, everything's good, and then spend the next 20 minutes reverting back to the old posture, because your brain will naturally go for the more efficient one. So run as well as you can for short periods and then slowly build up.
You just mentioned something there. I didn't want to just skip over it. So you said not stretching if you're sore. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
So if you finish a run, if you go out for a run and then you normally stretch down afterwards, what you're saying just to be like aware of?
Yeah. So yeah, if you go to the gym or something and do a bench press, and the next day it's not a really good idea to really try and stretch out that muscles because we're just adding more micro tears to it. So you can massage it if anything's feeling really tight. So in terms of the soleus muscle, if I go for a run where I haven't been using it for my whole life and then it's really sore, if I start trying to load more weight through it by stretching it, then that's going to take the recovery period longer.
What about in the like
you can
immediate afterwards?
So in terms of stretching, if your body's feeling tight and stuff like that, obviously it's a great idea. We really want to be mobile people because that's going to help us move better. So if you're feeling tight, then it's a really good idea to have stretches and stuff after. But I'm talking in terms of muscle soreness, it's not a good idea to start trying to add extra load and extra tension through it. So no problems with mobilizing yourself before, after a run. Not a big fan of doing deep stretches before a run, but certainly try and get your body warmed up, trying to get those hips nice and open, trying to get your shoulders and stuff. And you should start feeling, as my hips are moving, my shoulders are moving in synchronicity.
Okay, cool. And just to clarify, are you a proponent of like static stretching post afterwards?
I think static stretching is great if you're lacking a functional range of motion. So if you if your body is so tight that you can't get yourself into positions that you need to when you're running, then it's good. But we don't want to go down the yoga side where we're holding these long static stretches when we're in a functional range of motion, because we want the sort of optimal level of stretchiness, so our body works well within certain ranges. If we're too stretchy, then we're decreasing our ability to be springy and bouncy, and if we're too stiff, we're also decreasing our risk to be springy and bouncy.
Okay, so yeah, because I'm talking like mainly like after a hard session, like because a normal protocol for me would be we have dynamic before, and then we do a session. Let's say I'm doing a big Hyrox session, running and lifting stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, usually, because I'm first to arrive and last to leave the class usually, then I'm like 20, 25, 30 minutes, certainly like deep in season if I'm training a lot. And I've always felt like that's helped me like stave off injury and stuff. But is that a like flawed belief, do you think, or?
No, not at all. No. So we don't want our bodies to be seasoned up after our run. So it's a good idea to mobilize. I think once your body's working well, you should be able to sort of stretch yourself out on the runs a bit better. So if you're moving really well, you might not feel the need to do these deep, long stretches and stuff after. I certainly don't, but now I've been having a bit of a toy around with Hyrox, and I've noticed, after a session, my body's getting a lot stiffer. So
you're not going to have that perfect running form coming off a big old sled push usually.
No, you're not. So, but even when we do things like the sled push, it's important to try and keep our head in line with our shoulders, in line with our hips, because then we're allowing ourselves to tap into that strength and elastic posterior chain, rather than curling over and then having to use more of the powerful chain.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for running through all that. Shall we drop the screen share now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that was really useful. I thought it'd be cool to do that sort of thing because it just allows you to really get a live example. If you know, I know you said you're fairly new to Hyrox, but you dropped a little bit of a sled tip there. Any other things like that you've that you've seen or that people could improve on?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in Hyrox movement. It's something that I really want to start getting into. So this is why I'm quite keen to start working with those elite athletes and see what they're doing compared to amateurs. I might throw myself into a fire pit here if I start speaking about it too soon. I've only been having a play around with it for the first few weeks, but I'm enjoying it. But we seem to have the tendency of, with the farmers carries, everything slouching forward. Whereas if we pulled our shoulders back, we'd be able to tap into that posterior chain more. Same with the sled pushes, heads are down, everything's tapping into that anterior chain. So try and keep your posture upright, and then that will allow yourself to be much more efficient over time.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I wonder if because
and even with the lunges, even with the lunges, you need to have this slight side to side motion. So your head needs to be going towards your lead foot each time. That will help stabilize your pelvis and hips. So if you try and keep your head dead straight, you'll notice that your body is going to start to compensate as well.
Okay, cool. What do you think about healthy relationship with data / Strava?
Yeah, so I think, the tendency has been now everything needs to be uploaded or it didn't happen. That's what you hear a lot. I'm a fan of people using data and storing it and to see their progress over time, but it just depends what the relationship you have with your watch and recording your data. So, zone 2's become the massive craze now. And, if you go out for a zone 2 run and you're finding it very difficult to stay in zone 2 and you feel that your form is starting to slip, then for me, I think, form over function. So if you have to sacrifice your form to stay in zone 2, then I believe it's better to do cross training, where you could do something like cycling for a few hours a week to get that zone 2 in. And then you can use sort of harder sessions for the running, or even low end sort of conversational pace running. So I didn't make a lot of progress when I used to do just zone 2 training because I felt like my form was getting sloppy. But when I would sort of come in sort of low end zone 3, that's when the speed started dropping down because I was able to do it at an intensity where my body could recover, but also not pushing it too hard. So yeah, the obsession with data is, they're great. You can see your HRV. You can see when you need to take a rest and stuff. So they're really good. But if you're going out on a run and you can't stay in a particular heart rate zone, then you're starting to create this negative feedback loop of, I've just popped out of that zone. Now my brain's aware of it. Now everything starts tensing up. I start losing that relaxation of the run. And then it sort of becomes like a cyclical pattern of, the mind is now overthinking something. So even when we look at our watches, the data will change. Just being aware of it changes the data. So, if you go out to Kenyan and stuff, they're not all strapped up with heart rate monitors and stuff. They go on feel a lot of the time and they work together as a group. So they're also releasing endorphins when they're running. So they're having a more positive side effect. So if using a watch and stuff works really well from you, you don't get upset by going on your run and then seeing you peak from zone 2 to zone 3 straight away, then I think they can be really good. In terms of Strava, same again, it can be really good, but if you're trying to impress your friends by going out too hard all the time, then you're just beating up your body, just for a few kudos. So I'm a big fan of sort of going out a few times a week, just taking off the watch, taking any data off, start tuning into your body, because then we're starting to build a perception with our whole body and how hard we can push things or how easy an easy run should be. So you can think an easy run is easy, but you can wake up the next day and feel very tired from it. So you're starting to build a perception in your brain of, okay, so my easy run wasn't as easy as I thought it was, so I need to go even slower. So the more you can tap into your body and listen to that, then the more effective you'll become as a runner over time.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think when you were talking about running with other people, like the difference between me going out on a zone 2 run on my own versus with my mates is categorically a different run altogether. Like it's crazy, how much like the time just flies, doesn't it? And you're able to just stay in that low, even if we're at different levels. There seems to be this symbiotic thing that's happening, which is really cool. So yeah, huge advocate of running with a group. What about are there any like watch metrics that are particularly interesting? Like I'm thinking of like things like stride length and stuff like that. Are they any good?
So this is like the bit I get really excited about. So I predominantly teach people running technique, but in terms of speed and improving our speed long term, we want to start looking at the data. So like what is our stride length? What is our cadence? What is our ground contact time? What is our vertical oscillation? And how do we start improving those over time? So we want to see a pattern of those are going up over time, not necessarily just an obsession of, I'm staying in a particular heart rate zone.
How much can we rely? Oh, I'll give you an example. So, like, I've got this Coros Pace 3. How much can we rely on them on their own? Or because I know Coros do like a thing that you can actually attach to your foot, to get a little bit more accurate data. Like, how accurate are those metrics?
Yeah, so I use Garmin a lot, but they've got like a running pod that you can put on the back of your thing. I think they're pretty accurate. They've done a lot of testing, same with the Apple Watch. I'm not really that familiar with Coros, but I imagine if it's similar, then yeah, they are pretty accurate. In terms of wrist-based watches by themselves, I think they can struggle a little bit, especially so if you put a running pod on the center of your shorts, that's going to be a really good indicator of exactly what your ground contact time balance is between your left and your right. So, you know, as humans, we evolved to be quite naturally wonky creatures. So what tends to happen is our left arm has a watch. People are obsessed with using that watch. And that left arm doesn't move at all, whereas they get their right arm overworking, so their right shoulder starts flying back more. So one of the best things you can do if you do have that access to the data is start checking your ground contact time between your left and your right, and then start learning how to improve that left side that's usually a little bit lazier than the right side.
Okay, cool. Myles, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. Before we wrap up,
is
there anything that we've not covered? Any sort of major topics that you wanted to talk on?
Well, I can just run through basically, you know, what I would tell people to start working on. So, yeah, pushing off from that center of the foot, we're going to start activating our glutes. We need nice hip mobility to pair with that to increase our stride length. That's cycling motion. So, imagining that treadmill underneath you starts working everything backwards. Start trying to feel your body, your hips and your shoulders moving together. Getting those arms engaged, because most people's arms are just sort of being dragged along for the ride. So we've got 4 limbs for a reason. We want to use all of them to start propelling us. So nice and relaxed from the shoulders and just driving them back, and then allow that fascial and elastic energy to store in the shoulders and then come through naturally. Keep your head upright and just the forward lean from the bungee cord, and then that gets you the lean from the ankle. So that would be my sort of phase of sequences for runners to go out and start implementing.
Red flags, like what not to do, just like give us a quick rundown, reminder.
Red flags, yeah. So I'm not an advocate of heel striking. I'm not an advocate of overstriding, and I'm not an advocate of bending from the waist, not having your arms moving, and having your head positioned down. So, you know, it's sort of the inverse of what I just said. But, you know, when we can start to improve those things, you know, your times are going to start dropping over time.
Very cool. Yeah, I love it. Okay. Any plans, like what's on the cards for Myles? Anything you got coming up that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, so, you know, I've just started opening some 4 to 12 week programs where I'm working with people on a bi-weekly basis to start helping their running technique. I've been working with Claire Holt. She's signed me up to help her with a New York City marathon. So she's a celebrity and was in Vampire Diaries. So, and then, yeah, going out to Hyrox, to Dusseldorf to start helping some of those athletes with their running.
Okay, very cool. Is that is that
so,
in
yeah,
like
hopefully I can help the Hyrox industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, most people who probably listen to this podcast are probably very interested in Hyrox, and I think what it has done is I think it's made like performance coaching like a bit more of an industry, hasn't it? If you look back, you know, I don't know, like 5 years ago, I'd imagine most coaches would have been like fat loss coaches, like maybe bodybuilding or something, or but it's really made this kind of performance coaching is like a real industry, isn't it? So it would make absolute sense for you to like start going down this route, because I think it's going to help a lot of people working within the industry.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're an elite athlete who's struggling with their running, like you can save seconds or even minutes off your running, which is going to decrease your time. So yeah, in terms of helping people with their Hyrox, you know, there's a lot to offer, because it's there's a lot of running in Hyrox.
Yeah.
So but a lot of them aren't moving efficiently. A lot of them have got these locked up hips. A lot of them are rolling their shoulders forward and heads down. So, I say you can get incredibly efficient in moving in inefficient ways, but you're always going to benefit more from moving as efficiently as you possibly can.
I've got to be a little bit mean now and put you on the spot, so forgive me.
Yeah.
All right, so my last Hyrox, I did it in 105 basically ish. So let's what's that? 65 minutes. There's 8K running plus there's rock, so it's probably about 9K. If I held a gun to your head, what would, correcting my running form, how much time could I take off it?
So
don't worry, I won't hold you to this. I'm just going to publish it to the world.
Yeah, I would say a few minutes. You could, especially with the way that you're landing with that overstride and heel stride. I think if you put the work in over a series of months and stuff, you could be saving minutes off your time. How many? Can't give you a certain answer, but definitely could get you closer to that 1 hour mark, if not more.
Enticed. Well, okay, now is the perfect time for a chance for you to give a plug. Tell us all your socials and stuff so everyone can go and check out your stuff.
Yeah, so I'm at Find Your Stride Coach, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Yeah, YouTube's got about 30 followers, but on Instagram we've got 44 and about 12,000 on TikTok now. So slowly getting there.
I love it, mate. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate this, and hopefully people will check out your stuff. I will link your profile in the show notes and whatnot, and I would highly recommend people check out your Instagram page because it's really good. That's how I came across your stuff. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yes, cheers, thank you.
Hey guys, it's me. Just a quick one before you get going. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out the show notes for links to my guest and that 15% off you can get from Bear Bar. Go to bit.ly/bearjace for 15% off your first order. Thanks for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.